Great. Thank you to both of you for taking time to talk with me today about why you're running for the Congressional District seat for District number 3. And I think, if both of you can just start off by talking a little bit about who you are and, why you're running, why voters should vote for you. Maxine, Dexter, if you wouldn't mind going first, and then we can go on to Joanna.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And of course, to the Oregonian for doing this, and Joanna for accommodating my schedule. Really appreciate it. My name is Maxine Dexter. I use she, her pronouns. I am a mother, a physician, and a former state representative for House District 33. I'm really proud to be the Democratic nominee for Oregon's 3rd Congressional District. I was raised in a working class family. I'm first and only person in my family to go to college, actually to graduate from college. And I've been practicing in the 3rd Congressional District, taking care of patients for over 15 years now. This is something that is deeply meaningful to me, but also has inspired me to run for office. We see that people are working too hard to struggle, and I feel like I need to make an impact and jump in and lead where I see opportunity. And so I have a complex understanding of issues impacting our community because I see them every day in real time with my patients and my children, and that really guides the work that I do. And I look forward to the conversation. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. And Joanna, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about why you're running?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Joanna Harbour, and I live in Estacada, Oregon. I graduated from high school in Estacada. I got my political science degree in Idaho, and I obtained my Juris Doctorate from Willamette University in Salem in 2003. 2004 to 2017, I had a law practice in Estacada, which is in CD3. And I took on various cases such as business formation, divorces, guardianships, adoptions, property disputes, and some other types of cases. In 2021, I reactivated my law license, and then in 2022, started doing some nonprofit and pro bono cases. 2023 is when I started actually doing estate planning and some family law cases again, as well as continuing to advise nonprofits. My background is advocating for clients. I'm ready and able to advocate for the people of Congressional District 3 and fight for their interests and rights. As a lawyer, I am able to read and understand laws. I'm a good listener, and I'm used to listening to my clients, coming up with solutions to their problems and implementing those solutions. I can negotiate and reach settlements, and I'll take these skills back to Washington, D.C. to represent the people of Congressional District 3 and lead us into a new direction of prosperity, safety, and freedom.
Great, thank you very much. And we'll just kind of go back and forth in terms of who goes first. Joanna, if you wouldn't mind going first on this question, what would be your top priorities if you're elected?
So my top priorities is fixing the economy. I believe people shouldn't have to decide between buying groceries or gas and that type of thing. So I would work. My number one priority is definitely fixing the economy, which is a multi-level thing because it involves inflation, it involves energy independence, and it involves probably trying to actually go in and balance the budget back in DC, which is a huge monumental task, but I'm ready to go back there and do that. And also it involves a lot of things. And then the second one would be securing the border, which I think is fundamental for safety, and it would help the economy as well and help curb sex, human trafficking, drug trafficking, and things like that. And I forgot, how much time do we get per question?
It's totally
free for rolling. Okay. So I'm like, wait, how much can I get in here? So those are my two top priorities. And what was the second part of the question?
That was pretty much just what would be your top priorities. Okay, great. Maxine, same question for you. What would you do if elected? What would you focus on?
Fantastic. The first thing that I just want to say is really securing our democracy. And I desperately believe that making sure that we bring Harrison Walls into leadership is going to help us with that. Once I'm elected, it will be our economy, healthcare, and the environment. The economy includes affordable housing, childcare, and access to higher education that's affordable. healthy economy, or I'm sorry, healthcare, healthy communities includes access to abortion rights, reproductive rights for everyone. No one outside of a doctor's office and that relationship should have impact on a patient and their providers, joint decision making and what they are going to do with their bodies. And then lastly is the environment. And that is not because of the imminent threat isn't real. It's because I think urgently we need to secure those rights and make sure our economy is working, which includes an environmental policy that moves people into a green economy with good paying jobs and union wages.
Great, thank you.
Helen?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this is actually way off topic.
Okay.
Dr. Dexter, your cameras are reflecting your screen, so you may want to maximize Zoom so the only thing on your screen is Zoom and not anything else that may be private.
Thank you for saying
That's a
that.
good point. Yes.
Okay, I may just not wear glasses.
Okay. Yeah, there we go.
That's
Thank
easier
you.
than trying to. Thank you so much, Joanna.
Let's see. Okay, so Maxine, if you can go first on this question. Depending on who's talking, this is either the greatest or the worst economy ever. Tell me what you think are the significant takeaways for Oregonians, and are there any specific issues within the economy like that you would really want to focus in on?
Yeah, what I see is that the economy is not working for everyone. We have patients who are making, I have patients who are making impossible decisions about whether they can pay their rent or pay for the copays for the medications that I'm recommending. People don't have access to affordable childcare and therefore can't get into the workforce or into educational opportunities or training to elevate their earning potential. So it is very clear to me that our economy is not working for everyone.
Is there something in particular that you would want to do if elected that to address part of that?
Yeah, 100%. So we know that East Multnomah County includes some of the most marginalized folks in our state. We have disinvested in many ways or lacked the investment in the community that we really need for affordable childcare and access to really high quality public schools and housing. So housing, food and shelter, that should be a bottom line right that every American can expect if they are working that they can afford. And that is not the reality for our people in CD3 throughout Oregon, but in particular, East Portland and East Multnomah County. So affordable housing and affordable childcare are top priorities there for me.
Thank you. And Joanna, same question for you. What are the takeaways from the economy that you think are the most significant takeaways for Oregonians about how the economy is going? And are there certain aspects that you would really want to drill down on?
So with regard to the economy, I think in the beginning you said something about people who think it's the worst or the best economy. And to be honest, we went through a Great Depression before, so that probably would still be our worst time economically. But I think we could be headed there if we don't right the ship and change course. We seem to be going down. Inflation is going up. Jobs aren't going up as high as they should be. And so a lot of people are struggling with housing, paying bills, buying food. And so we do need to work on things. And some things we can't change because some things are state specific or in state laws. And we can't change how a state taxes, but what we can do is go back there and kind of fix what is happening wrong in DC, which is overspending, going so far into debt, not prioritizing what is important to American citizens versus maybe giving way too much foreign aid. It would be nice if we could afford to fix everyone's problems, but I think we should fix ours first. Once ours are fixed, then we can help others. It's kind of like the airline thing. You're supposed to put on your oxygen before you put on someone else's. And so we definitely need to be working on that because we shouldn't have as many Oregonians or actually, quite frankly, Americans struggling to make ends meet.
Thank you. Kind of staying on this topic a little bit, and Joanna, you'll be first on this question. Both presidential candidates are proposing various ideas for cutting taxes, imposing tariffs, not taxing tipped income, and other kind of populist sounding policies. Do you agree with any of them? And if so, why?
Well, actually, technically both sides are saying not taxing on tips, and that's actually something I agree with. Actually, I don't tip. I give gifts, and I actually tell them that this is a gift and they don't have to pay taxes on it when I give it. So that's actually a policy that has been my personal philosophy. I think it would help the service-oriented business workers quite a bit to actually not have that. And that is an agreement that seems to be on both sides. And when we find something we agree with, we should run with that as fast as we can and get it done, because those are few and far between. We don't have a lot of bipartisanship going on right now. And that's one that I think we could easily get done and have it done pretty quickly.
And are you concerned about kind of the financial impact of that? For instance, is there a different way you could go about that by rather than exempting tipped income, something else that really looks at lower income levels? And Joanna, that's still for you. It's
Oh, okay. Sorry. I didn't know that. Basically, there's all kinds of things that we could be looking at. And when we sit down, we can't just say we're going to stop taxing tips. We have to look at all the tax bill because we have to see how that's going to impact revenue versus how doing something else. And so I'm not opposed to looking at other options. It's what's going to be best for those workers is basically what our goal is. And so I'm not tied to any one specific plan, but the no tax on tip is something everyone can understand. So everyone understands we're trying to help those workers. And so it's easy for us to say, let's work on that. And if once we get down to it, we figure out that after all the review analysis, that it'd actually be better to do a different course, then I think many of us where that's our goal would be willing to go that different course, as long as it's accomplishing the same thing.
Thank you. Maxine, same question for you. Both candidates are proposing various ideas: cutting taxes, imposing tariffs, not taxing tipped income. Which of these, if any, do you agree with?
Yeah, I think they're two very different proposals that have deeply different impacts on people. The Wharton School validated that today. I'd really like to see Washington actually doing things for our working families. They are not being served by the politics in Washington right now. So repealing, letting the Trump tax cuts expire is one major thing. Making sure that tax rebates and initiatives are targeted to the middle class and working families. So child tax credits. I do believe that first-time home buyers who have been left out of that generational wealth opportunities, getting grants or tax initiatives for first-time home buyers makes a lot of sense. And certainly our small businesses having a tax incentive for starting a business, $50,000 can be a huge opportunity for people. And we know that Oregon's economy is deeply impacted by small business and entrepreneurs. So I think especially in Oregon, that's a proposal that I deeply support.
Great. Let's shift over to gun safety laws. Recently there was another mass shooting at a school in Georgia. Are there any actions that you would support? And I'm sorry, Maxine, you go first on this. Are there any additional actions or national legislation that you would support that you think would help address, not just mass shootings, but the issue of gun safety overall?
Yeah, I mean, this is an issue, Helen, as I know you know, and hopefully most people do, that has been tracking what I've done, is that gun violence prevention is a top priority for me. I've been working on it for years before I was in office, and certainly it's been something while I've been at the Oregon legislature that I've been championing. What we've done in Oregon can be implemented at the federal level. Red flag laws, background checks, making sure that safe storage is a priority. And frankly, an assault weapons ban, I believe needs to happen. I don't believe in a bipartisan way that's going to happen right off the bat, but common sense initiatives that gun owners to support largely. We have the number one cause of death in our children is gun violence. We do not have to accept that, nor should we accept it. My daughter was in lockdown at the University of Virginia, where 3 students were killed. And I cannot tell you, nor would I ever wish for a family to go through what we did. And she was okay. What we are seeing, the trauma that is being induced across our nation, directly on families, but indirectly with the fear of sending our children to school, is simply unacceptable. We know what the solutions are. It's the guns, and we need to stop that.
Thank you. Joanna, same question for you. Are there any actions or federal legislation that you would support aimed at gun safety issues?
So with regard to the one that just happened, it was similar to a lot of the cases in that the individual had been alerted to authorities, and they basically fumbled the ball on that. They did not handle that individual correctly and get them the mental health they need. Mental health is something that's so important, and we actually, I don't believe in Oregon we do a good enough job in helping people with mental health issues. As someone who's had friends and family who experienced those, it's very difficult to actually navigate that system and assist somebody who's dealing with mental health. And I think everywhere we can improve that, and that would help with all kinds of issues, not just gun issues, but it would help with suicides and maybe even help stop some maybe domestic violence if the underlying cause is a mental health issue. And so I think that is a focus that needs to really happen. As far as guns are concerned, I'm a firm believer that the guns didn't actually do the shooting. It was the individuals who did the shooting. And we have to be very careful when we're talking about a constitutional right and balance the difference between someone's right under the Constitution versus keeping everyone safe. And there are some things we can do to keep people safe. I think we're kind of at the background checks and things like that are great, but we also need to fortify the schools. I mean, Congress is protected by people who have guns. Why aren't our children? Since it seems to be a place that draws people who want to shoot. I mean, banks have security. All these places have better security, but our schools are basically just open zones in a lot of areas where anyone can walk in, and that's not safe for besides other reasons besides guns. And so some places have open campuses where kids can leave, and the kids can leave and not come back, and where are they at that point? So I think there's other things we can look at to do to drive home the safety. Nobody wants, not at least not anyone I know, wants anyone to have to go through any of those mass shootings or even an individual shooting. I'm on the side of life, so I don't want people to lose their lives. And so anything we can do that we can agree on that does not cross the line of violating the Constitution is something that we can look into, but we have to be very careful.
Okay, so just to follow up on that, Joanna, so in the Georgia case, that was a situation where the father had told police that the son doesn't have free access to guns. Clearly he did. In fact, the father gave him the AR-15 that was used. Is there, would you support, do you feel like a safe storage kind of law would violate the Second Amendment, or a red flag law the way that Oregon has, where if there is a situation where mental health is a mental health issue is suspected, or that someone can temporarily take the gun?
Okay, so with regard to the safe storage law, I didn't know that. I haven't been keeping up with the newest updates on that case, so I hadn't heard that the father had basically done that. Even if you had safe storage, I don't think it would have prevented that father from giving access to that, because he was already giving him, so it wouldn't have worked in that case. So sometimes it's really hard in some cases when you end up having a parent who, that's why he's probably actually being prosecuted, I imagine, because it's my understanding he is being prosecuted. Yeah, when you have the parent who is being just as dangerous as the person, I mean, that's even safe storage wouldn't have helped that situation. There are other situations where safe storage, is a good idea. Nobody wants to, well, actually that was a knife. Sorry. I was just thinking of a story of a 3-year-old boy who got stabbed by his brother, but that was a knife. But we've heard stories before of young children being shot by other young children who had access to guns. So that's something that we can consider, as long as we don't take it too far and make it too expensive or too onerous for the person, for anyone to follow. But as far as red flag laws go, people are entitled to due process. So we can't just randomly have someone say, oh, my neighbor who I hate happens to be mentally deranged, come get their guns, and the cops come get their guns without any due process. So as long as there's a due process where there's a judge involved and the person has the right to defend themselves, then I think we can look at those types of laws. But when we're talking about anyone can just make a false accusation and that's acted on, that's where we could have problems.
Thank you.
Helen, can I just respond to,
Sure.
I really appreciate, Joanna, how you are exhibiting exactly what we know is possible, is reasonable, common sense interventions that protect people. And that is exactly where I think we can find alignment. Nobody wants their children in danger or other children in danger. So those common sense, I think it is absolutely where we start. I'm certainly not trying to withdraw people's guns that are, legally and safely maintained. But I also will share, more gun deaths are due to suicide than any other cause in the United States. And I will tell you, as a critical care doc who takes care of people who are in those moments of despair, turning to trying to hurt themselves, the people I don't see are the ones who have access to a firearm. And in that moment of despair, having a hurdle to have to get through, we know saves lives. If you take an overdose, you live and I get to help. But if you have access to a gun, it is far more likely to be fatal. So I do think that, we've already shown here we can find alignment. And I think that's really what I would do showing up in Washington.
Great, thank you. I think, Joanna, you go first on this question.
I'm sorry, my computer keeps popping up as my flash drive. I should probably figure out which flash drive it is and take it off. Just give me a second.
Okay, sure, no problem.
There we go.
Okay, great. So it's unknown which party will control the House come January. Can you talk about any examples or just how you would go about being effective if your party ends up being in the minority?
And I think that's me first. Is that right, Helen?
I think it's Joanna, actually.
Okay, so if your side ends up in the minority, that always puts the side that's in the minority kind of in a more difficult situation, and they basically have to try and negotiate from a place of weakness. And it's kind of hard to say because it really depends on, even though we're saying the other side's in the majority, we don't know which one of the current ones are going to still be there, which ones are going to be new, what are their ideas going to be. If you can find some on the other aisle, which I believe there are those who exist, who are willing to compromise and come up with solutions. You say, I need this for my district, let's put this in your bill, and then basically vice versa, you support the bill. So it's gonna, you have that type of work you're gonna have to do, and you just have to find those on the other side of the aisle who are willing to work with you. And I believe there are still some who exist in this fictional, because we don't know who they're going to be. Mm-hmm. So at least I'm hoping there are enough on both sides that are willing to work together, because I don't see either side getting a huge majority where they're going to be able to do. I think when we get to the place where we're going to have to do more compromising, not compromising on anyone's core values, but compromising on, here's the difference between we're going to have, and I like to use this example. I know not everyone likes term limits, but it's an easy example where you're going to be able to serve 2 terms versus 3 terms. We can easily compromise on that. And so that's because that's not giving up anyone's values if we're just arguing over, are we going to make it this much versus that much? And so I think that's something you can do as a minority. You just find those who are willing to work with you, and you probably find a couple others on your side who are willing to go with you to work with them.
Great, thank you. And Maxine, same question for you. If Democrats continue to be in the minority, how would you be effective?
Great. First thing is we're going to work really hard to try to get the majority. And if we're not, I have approved, I'm going to talk about my personal attributes and experience and then how I've done it. So one, I'm a kid who grew up in a very conservative family. My father describes himself as making Ronald Reagan look like a Democrat. So having loving relationships with people who think differently than me and having the ability to engage in conversations and still respect them is something I've grown up doing. I also take care of patients every day, and I don't look at them and ask what their party affiliation is. I take care of Democrats, Republicans, unaffiliated, everybody, and it's how I show up. I build trust and I listen to them where they're at. That has impacted my ability and my success as a lawmaker. I'm the only person in this race who's been a lawmaker who's passed bipartisan legislation. And with Vice Chair Helfrich on my housing committee, who's also now the minority leader in the House, we had two rules: no surprises and keep your word. And doing that, we passed historic housing legislation. It's also how we got the opioid harm reduction package with really broad bipartisan support across the finish line. It's meeting people where they're at, listening, and making sure that we all get something we need and nobody gets everything they want.
Great, thank you. And Maxine, if you can go first on this question. What to do about immigration is obviously a huge issue that Congress has grappled with. Senators from both parties appeared to be working on a compromise that got dropped at the end at the request of former President Trump. What are but yet the bill itself would have gone much farther than Democrats had been willing to go. I don't know how familiar you are with what was being discussed at that point, but do you see a path to getting to a bill, or are there certain things that are must-haves in an immigration bill?
Yeah. So the first thing is there was a bipartisan agreement that was killed at the last minute by Donald Trump because he'd rather run on an issue that's not fixed than to fix the issue. That we need to pass that bill. Building on that, I believe there is an enormous issue. We have fentanyl flooding our streets, and we have people and guns being trafficked. And so we need a secure border, but we also need real, efficient, transparent opportunities for people to legally work and gain citizenship opportunities as they've been here for years and proven themselves to be in every way an American except for through a citizenship opportunity. So we absolutely need to secure the border. We've worked out those policies. We need to pass that policy, and then making sure that we have pathways for our dreamers, that we make sure that people can work and live and contribute to our revenue base, or to pay taxes as workers without hiding in the shadows in the United States is really important.
Okay, thank you. And Joanna, how about you? What would be the important core aspects of an immigration bill, or what are your thoughts in terms of what what Congress needs to do on that front?
So we definitely do need to secure the border, as already been said. Without securing the border, we're just going to keep having more people come and then keep having to address the issue. So the border needs to be secured for all the reasons that Dr. Dexter said, for the drugs, the human trafficking, which is just a tragedy, all those things that result from that. And the horror stories. I mean, it's just horrible the way some people get here. And so we need to secure the border, and that is basically a non-negotiable. So if it's not secured, we're just going to keep having the problem go on forever. So that is one non-negotiable, is securing the border and keeping it secured, which that means we'll have to keep up with technology, because I don't know, in my lifetime, technology has gone drastically from like nothing really to Nintendo, Atari, to all this stuff, to now we have AI. So whatever we're doing, we have to make sure we're keeping up with whatever other people are doing to try and get over here and skipping the line. But we do need to work on immigration, because it is kind of difficult for a lot of people to get here. We don't have a lot of legal immigration going on. So we need to figure out ways to make it more of a fair system, that we're getting people here who want to contribute, be part of our community, and basically not do any illegal activities, and just be the honest contributing. Like many of us came from families who came here legally, and we're now contributing members of society after generations. And so that's what we want to continue to have happen for people. Just, we want to know who's coming over, and we want to vet them. And then we have to deal with those who are here, and then we have to come up with what we can get everyone to agree on how we're going to deal with those who are here. And I mean, I think there's different categories. There's people who've been here a long time who haven't done any other criminal activities. There are people who have done extra criminal activities. And I think everyone would agree that anyone who maybe had a DUI where they killed someone, that anyone who has other criminal activities probably should not be given any type of status here, but serve their sentence and send them to where they came from, which sounds very harsh, but we can't afford to deal with all those problems that come with that. But for the legal ones who have been here for a long time and haven't done anything else wrong, some kind of legal status, we can talk about green cards and things like that. But we need to deal with it compassionately, because we do have people who've come here, been here for a long time, and then they have U.S. citizen children. So.
Thank you very much. And Joanna, if you can go first on this question. Would you support national legislation either banning or establishing a right to abortion?
No.
So you and I worded that correctly. Banning
let me answer it. I believe it's a state issue, and I don't think it should be solved at the national. I think that would create too much problem. I think each state has the right to figure out what is best for them, preferably by the voters themselves.
Okay. And so you wouldn't support a national ban?
No.
Okay. Maxine, same question for you. Would you support a ban or establishing federal legislation establishing a right to abortion?
Without question, a right to an abortion, bodily autonomy, period. What we choose to do with our bodies should be our decision, not one that the government decides it has a right to make. For abortion in particular, that is a very personal choice that I don't want a politician telling me what I should do. It really is between a person and their physician, and that should not stop at abortion. It should be bodily autonomy, period, is a right as an American citizen.
And if I may,
sure.
I'm curious, then are you not for mandatory vaccines, since that's a body autonomy question?
There are public health issues and there's bodily autonomy, and an abortion does not hurt anyone other than the woman and their child, that they are making a very painful decision. Vaccinations, I have absolutely supported public health policies because that is a greater risk. And having lived through that, I absolutely think that there are reasonable times when vaccines need to happen. And right now we have polio, measles, mumps breaking out across our communities. Those are public health risks that put children who are immune suppressed, people who are immune suppressed, at high risk, because that is not bodily autonomy. That is a public health decision.
So you agree with forcing people to have medication?
No, that is not at all what I just said.
Well, I guess the question is, do you agree that people must be forced a mandatory vaccine?
We don't have that now. I don't support that. No.
Great. I'd like to go follow up with you, Maxine, on a related question. Is there a minimum week, gestational week level that you would support? Like, for instance, if there were a federal law establishing a right to abortion, would there be a limit in terms of how many weeks that would be allowed?
Let me be clear. There are no post-delivery abortions, executions. There is a lot of nonsense out there. There's nowhere that that's legal.
I'm thinking like 24 or like 20 weeks.
The vast majority of abortions occur in the first 12 weeks, sometimes up to 20. After that, if it's a fetal issue, there's gestational issues, other things that might happen that put the mother's life at risk. I think there should be opportunities to reconsider that. But that, again, is such a deeply personal issue that would have to deal with the likelihood of the baby being able to be born. 24 weeks, sometimes we can support an infant through that in the NICU and through other areas. Very, very unlikely, but it does happen. So I think the reality is that, again, this is reproductive freedom. People should be able to make that decision between their physician and the mother, with exceptions. And I would be fine if there are certain gestational cutoffs, with the exceptions only for the risk for the mother's life.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. And so this question goes to you, Joanna, and these are going to be a little bit more individualized. Joanna, so you're running as a Republican in a very, very blue district. Do you, I guess, what are the ways that you think do appeal to the broader Democratic base that's in District 3?
I think it was in December. I believe it was the Portland Chamber of Commerce last December, so almost a year ago. They did a poll, and 70% of Multnomah County, which is the biggest voting block, believe that they're headed the wrong direction, and they've had the same leadership in this district and in that county for a very long time. So the way to change direction is to change how they've been voting, and to vote for someone who's different and who's willing to go back there and try new things and go in a different direction to fix the economy and deal with all these problems that they believe are happening.
Great, thank you. And Maxine, in terms of, you would be coming from Portland, from, one of the bluest parts of America. Are there things that you can point to, or positions that you can point to, that you feel are further to the right of where, a lot of your Portland base would be? Like, how would you, is there something that you think has broader bipartisan appeal than perhaps like just solely to Democrats?
I mean, absolutely. We talked about housing. We talked about border immigration. There are many opportunities, especially because of our economy, where bipartisanship is foundational. And I have proven myself to be pragmatic. I believe the root word of progressive is progress for a reason. Making progress is part of being a progressive. So I, without question, will work with others to find answers that address the issues that concern everyone. I was in Hood River, Gresham, and Portland this week, and absolutely, I'm hearing across all these areas where there's very different realities, people sharing the same sentiment that unsheltered houselessness is something they want to see ending. The addiction crisis needs to be addressed. Mental health needs to be addressed. People want access to affordable health care. These are not partisan issues. And being a pragmatic progressive means that I will continue to work towards solutions in an iterative way. I don't believe there's one bill to solve any issue. We have to continue to tinker and make sure that we are doing the right work and getting things impacting people in the way intended. And that is part of building trust with our government, as well as showing our work and being transparent.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you both very much. I want to give you guys each a minute or two to, if there's any closing remarks you want to make. And Maxine, why don't you go first on this?
Great. So just thank you so much for this opportunity. I am so grateful to be a considered option in this district. It is the most beautiful district in Oregon. It is diverse. It is in need of continuing the excellent leadership that Congressman Blumenauer has established over 28 years. As a physician, as a mother, as somebody who holds people at the center of everything I do, that's how I'm going to show up in Washington. I want to get things done. Washington needs to work. And so I will continue to make sure I show up in the communities, listen to people, and bring their voices with me to Washington, because the reality is there aren't lobbyists for people. That's our job. We need to make sure that we elevate the needs of our constituents above interests from special interests and others. There's so much that's not working about Washington. What I can control is how I show up, how I lead with my values, and how I make sure that I deliver for the people of Oregon.
Great, thank you. And Joanna, any closing remarks?
Well, Congressional District 3 is a very unique district. It has parts of Clackamas, all of Hood River, and Multnomah County, where it has rural and urban. It's not just one demographic. It has a variety of people. And as I said before, as a lawyer, I'm used to representing people and going and fighting for them, and I will do that. I will go and take the issues and problems and concerns we have in CD3 and represent them back there, and work with people back in Congress. As one member, I can't do anything on my own, so I will form alliances and work with people to get things done for this district and change us into a new direction, a direction of hope where we can fix the economy and deal with a lot of these issues, such as border security and the housing and so many issues that we do have going on in this district, and work to get that stuff accomplished. And Dr. Dexter and I agree that DC isn't working so well for everybody right now, and that is something that I am able to go back and work on and do my part as one member and try and fix it and right the ship for the whole country and specifically for this district and for the state of Oregon.
Great. Thank you both very much. I really appreciate the thoughtful discussion.
Thank you.
I will be in touch if I have any other questions, but again, thank you, and have a great night.
Thank you.
You too.
Take care.